the Alien Festival and the Laughing Challenge. The stars above the planet Thalara moved slowly, like glowing fish in a quiet sea. Every 100 years, the Thalani people held a festival under the twin moons, where the air shimmered with color and music danced through the air like wind. Visitors came from across the galaxy, drawn by the beauty, the mystery, and the chance to meet the royal blood. Jace, a young human explorer, stood at the edge of the crowd. He wore a simple cloak and dusty boots, and he carried a small translator device in his ear. It was his first time on Thalara. Unlike the others who came to trade or show off, Jace only came to learn. The alien city sparkled with light. Floating orbs glowed blue and gold, and long banners hung from tall, crystal towers. Strange creatures moved through the streets, some with wings, some with tails, some glowing softly in the dark. But none of them made Jace feel nervous. He had seen many aliens before, until he saw her. She stood tall and proud on a silver platform, above the dancers. Her skin shimmered like starlight, her hair long and silver blue. She wore a royal sash across her shoulder marked with golden symbols. Her eyes were glowing, sharp, and full of power. When she laughed, it was like music, cold, beautiful, and dangerous. "You there?" she said, pointing down. Her voice carried, through the square. "The human." The crowd turned. Jace looked around, confused. She was pointing at him. "Yes, you," she said. "Come forward." Jace stepped forward slowly. Whispers rose from the crowd. Some laughed, others looked shocked. "Do you know who I am?" she asked, smiling. "No," Jace said honestly. She tilted her head. "How bold. Then let me make it fun for you. If you guess my true name, I will marry you on the spot." The crowd exploded in laughter. Many Thalani nobles shook their heads, whispering insults. "A human? Marry her? Impossible." "You play games," Jace said. "I do." She smiled. "And this one has never been won. Hundreds have tried. Many offered power, treasure, even planets. But no one has guessed it. My name is a secret passed by blood, lost to time." Jace looked into her eyes. "And if I lose? Then you must leave this world and never return," she said, stepping closer. "So, do you want to guess, human?" He thought for a moment. His heart beat faster, not because of fear, but something strange, like he had been here before, like he had heard her laugh in a dream. The music stopped. The lights dimmed. The square fell silent. He took a breath, stepped closer, and whispered something in her ear. Her body froze. The crowd leaned in. She didn't laugh. Her glowing eyes went wide. She stepped back as if hit by lightning. "What did he say?" Someone shouted. She didn't answer. She stared at Jace, her hand over her chest. Her lips trembled. Then she turned and ran. The guards moved toward Jace, weapons raised. "What did you say to her?" one asked. "I don't know," Jace said honestly. "I just said the name I saw in my dream." "Impossible," a noble hissed. "That name has not been spoken for 700 years. "What name?" Jace asked. But no one answered. The guards grabbed him, pulling him away from the crowd. "Wait!" Jace shouted. "I don't understand. What's happening?" The alien sky above began to change. Strange lights flickered among the stars, and somewhere, deep in the palace, the girl who had laughed was now crying. Because the name he spoke wasn't just her name. It was a name that could change everything. A name from the stars. The Thalani palace was not made of stone or steel. It was carved from crystal that grew from the ground like living ice. Walls shimmered with ancient energy, and each hallway echoed with the whispers of the past. Somewhere deep inside, hidden from the crowds and far from the music, she stood in silence. Her hands trembled. Her heart raced. Her name, her true name, had been a secret even to herself. It was given to her only once when she was born under a blood eclipse. Then it was taken, locked away, hidden by her mother to protect her. She had never told anyone. Not even the stars remembered it, yet the human boy, Jace, whispered it. How? Guards rushed through the palace halls. Servants scattered. Nobles shouted in panic. The Empress herself, ruler of the Thalani Empire, stood before her glowing throne, her face carved in stone. "Find him," the Empress ordered. "And if he speaks that name again, cut out his tongue." Outside the palace, Jace sat in a dark, holding chamber. Chains of light wrapped around his wrists, not metal, but thought, constructed by Thalani minds. He didn't struggle. He didn't need to. His mind was already spinning faster than his heartbeat. "I saw it in a dream," he whispered to himself. But that wasn't just a dream. He remembered the way her eyes changed when he said the name. 1 second she had been a goddess, laughing at him. The next, she looked like a frightened girl. A door opened. 2 armored guards stepped inside. Behind them walked a tall woman with black markings on her cheeks and robes made of moving light. "I am High Seer Valmyra," she said coldly. "You are lucky she stopped your execution." "She?" Jace asked. "Princess Lura," Valmyra answered, voice tight. "The girl you dared to name?" "I didn't dare," Jace said. "I just felt it." Valmyra narrowed her eyes. "No, one feels that name. Not unless it's buried inside them." She waved her hand and the chains disappeared. "You are coming with me." They walked through glowing halls. Alien symbols floated in the air, shifting as they passed. Jace saw paintings on the walls, images of tall, silver-eyed warriors, and one human-looking figure in armor, holding the hand of a Thalani princess. The painting was ancient, yet the human in it looked almost like him. Who was that? Jace asked. Valmyra didn't answer. Finally, they entered a large chamber. Lura stood in the center, surrounded by glowing stones. She had changed, no longer smiling, no longer proud. She looked smaller, quieter, but her eyes burned with questions. "Do you know what you said?" she asked softly. "No," Jace said. "But I felt it. Like it came from somewhere else." Lura looked at Valmyra, who nodded. Then she stepped closer to Jace. "You spoke the name Ilari," she said. "That name is sacred, forbidden. It belonged to a royal bloodline we erased from history." Jace blinked. "So why did I say it?" Lura's hands shook. "Because you carry it too." The room went still. "What do you mean?" Jace asked, his voice low. Valmyra stepped forward. "Your blood has traces of Thalani royalty. That should be impossible." "My mother was human," Jace said. "My father too." Valmyra shook her head. "Your ancestors lied. Or they didn't know. Somewhere in your line, one of them shared a bond with a Thalani." "A bond?" Jace asked. "A soul binding," Lura said quietly. "It happens once every 1,000 years, when 2 minds meet across space and time, when fate connects them." Jace took a step back. "Why me?" "Because the stars chose you," Lura said. "And now, we are in danger." The stones around them pulsed red. Warning signals. "What's happening?" Jace asked. Valmyra looked at the stones. "The old ones stir. Ancient machines buried beneath the palace. Machines that only respond to royal blood. And that name." Lura's voice dropped. "If you speak it again, they will awaken fully." "What do they do?" Jace asked. Valmyra answered with fear in her eyes. "They destroy. Or they crown." Suddenly, alarms blared through the palace. Guards ran past the door. A message came through the wall in glowing Thalani script. "Someone has broken into the vault. The name has been written in blood." Lura gasped. Valmyra turned to her. "You must take the human and run." "Why?" Jace asked. "Because now they will hunt you," Valmyra said. "And if they capture you again, they won't just cut your tongue, they'll tear the stars apart to erase you." "Erase me?" Jace asked, stunned. "But I didn't do anything." "You did everything," Lura said. "You spoke the name. That time itself tried to forget." She grabbed his hand, warm and trembling. "Come with me, Jace. The truth lies deeper than this palace. And if we're too late, the name you whispered could be the start of a war, the test of truth. The tunnels beneath the Thalani Palace were older than memory. They were not marked on any map, not shown in any archive. Even most of the royal blood had never seen them. They were made of black stone that hummed with ancient energy, carved in a time before the stars were counted. Jace stood at the entrance, staring into the dark. "You want me to go in there? Alone?" he asked. Lura nodded, her silver blue hair glowing faintly in the dim light. This place was made to test the heart, the blood, the truth. What kind of test? She looked down, her voice quiet. No one who enters ever comes out the same. Valmyra handed Jace a small sphere of glowing crystal. This is a mind light. It will respond to your thoughts. Hold it close. If it turns red, run. That's not very comforting, Jace muttered. You asked how you knew my name, Lura said. This maze holds the answer, and maybe something more, something forgotten. Jace took a deep breath, nodded once, and stepped into the blackness. The tunnel closed behind him without a sound. At first, the silence felt peaceful. The only sound was his own breathing and the soft pulse of the crystal in his hand. Then the walls began to shift. They didn't move physically, but something about them changed. They pulsed with memory. Words began to appear on the stone, glowing for just a moment before fading. Who are you? Why do you carry her name? What are you hiding from yourself? Jace's steps slowed. He turned a corner and found himself in a chamber filled with mirrors, not normal mirrors. These showed reflections from other places, other times. In one, he saw a version of himself dressed in armor, standing beside a Thalani woman. In another, he saw a baby being passed between a human man and an alien mother. In a third, he saw Lura, standing in a burning city, her eyes glowing gold. The mind light pulsed faster. Then a voice spoke from the shadows. You should not be here. Jace turned, raising the crystal. A shape moved at the edge of the room, tall, cloaked, glowing faintly. It had no face, only eyes like twin suns. Who are you? Jace asked. A guardian, the voice said. I protect the truth. And you are not ready for it. Then test me, Jace said, his voice steady. The figure raised a hand and the room fell away. Suddenly, Jace stood in a strange landscape. Half memory, half dream. Skies swirled red and gold. The ground was broken, floating in pieces like islands in the air. A storm of light and shadow raged in the distance. He looked down. His clothes were different. Armor now, heavier, familiar. This is not real, he whispered. No, the voice echoed. This is the truth inside you. A woman appeared before him. Not Lura, but someone with the same eyes, older, kinder. She walked slowly toward him, holding out her hand. You are my legacy, she said softly. My son's son, and her chosen. Jace felt tears rise without knowing why. Who are you? He asked. The one who gave up her crown to protect the stars, she answered, and the one who bound her line to earth, so that one day her name could return. Behind her, the storm grew stronger. You must choose, Jace, she said. Go back and forget, or move forward and become what you were meant to be. Didn't answer. The ground shook. The sky cracked with thunder. Something massive moved through the clouds. Wings of shadow, eyes like burning suns. What is that? Jace asked. The memory eater, the woman said. It feeds on forgotten name, and it knows you have one. The beast screamed, flying toward him. Jace turned and ran. The world shifted around him, paths breaking, memories twisting, voices screaming inside his head. You don't belong. You're not Thalani. You are nothing. The mind light turned red, but Jace didn't stop. He ran through halls made of stars, over bridges of bone, past visions of lives he never lived. Each step took something from him. A feeling, a thought, a fear. Finally, he burst into a final chamber, in The center stood a stone pedestal. On it, etched in gold, was the name he had whispered, Ilari. He touched it. The world exploded in light. When he opened his eyes, he was lying on the floor of the maze's entrance. Valmyra and Lura were kneeling beside him. He did it, Valmyra whispered. He saw the truth. Jace sat up slowly. I saw a woman. She knew me. She was your ancestor, Lura said. One of the last royal blood Thalani. She chose exile. She chose Earth. And you are the answer to her promise. Jace looked at Lura, eyes wide. Then that means, Lura nodded. You're not just human, Jace. You're Thalani too, born of two worlds, and now, both will want you. Outside, the sky had changed. Stars were moving. Machines beneath the planet were waking, and somewhere far above, the Memory Eater had smelled a name that was never meant to return. The secret of the bloodline, the stars above Thalara moved faster now, as if something was pulling them from their ancient paths. High in the crystal towers, scholars whispered of omens. Machines that had slept for 10,000 years were stirring. Deep under the royal archives, old walls began to crack, and from the cracks, red light pulsed like a heartbeat. But the center of it all was a name, and a boy who should never have known it. Jace sat in silence. The chamber around him was quiet, but not calm. He could feel the tension in the air, like standing in a storm just before lightning strikes. Lura stood across from him, arms folded, her glowing eyes fixed on the floor. For the first time, she looked unsure of herself. Valmyra paced the room, her long robes trailing sparks of energy. This changes everything, she said. You said that already, Jace replied, still pale. Why don't you tell me why? Valmyra stopped. Because your blood, it carries a key. A key to what? Lura answered, her voice barely above a whisper. To the throne. The words dropped like a hammer between them. What throne? Jace asked. Valmyra stepped closer, her eyes locked on his. The throne of unity, the old seat of power, built when humans and Thalani once ruled together, before it was all erased from history. Jace frowned. That sounds like a story. It is, Valmyra said. But stories are where truth hides. She moved to a panel on the wall and pressed her hand to it. The wall melted into light, revealing a hidden vault behind it. Inside were scrolls of living crystal, floating books, and strange glowing eggs that pulsed like breathing lungs. She pulled out one small orb and handed it to Jace. Hold it, focus. Jace did. The orb warmed in his palm, then exploded with light. A vision filled the room. A Thalani princess with silver hair knelt beside a human man, both wounded, both smiling. They held a child between them, and behind them rose a city of both, worlds half metal, half crystal, glowing with peace. Then the vision burned. Machines fell from the sky. The human was dragged away. The princess screamed as her name was torn from the air, and the child vanished. That was the first bond, Valmyra said. The first forbidden love between a Thalani royal and a human explorer. Their child was hidden, sent across time, across bloodlines. She turned to Jace. That child's line is yours. Jace felt cold. You're saying I'm some kind of prince? No, Lura said. You're something worse. You're hope, Valmyra added. And that makes you a threat. Suddenly, alarms screamed through the palace. A red orb floated into the chamber, blinking fast. Code Black, it announced. Unauthorized entry detected. Vault breach. Intruder holds royal frequency. Who? Valmyra asked. The orb hesitated. Identity cloaked, but he speaks the name. Lura turned to Jace, eyes wide. There's another. Jace stood up fast. Another who knows your name? Not mine, Lura said. His. They rushed through the palace as guards scrambled to lock down the halls. Outside, the sky had turned violet. Lightning cracked across the clouds and strange shapes moved in orbit. Ancient ships, long forgotten, were waking like sleeping beasts. They reached the vault chamber, where thick crystal doors had been shattered. Inside stood a man. Tall, pale, eyes glowing blue like ice. He wore Thalani armor, but old, rusted, marked by war. On his chest was the symbol of the first house, the same symbol Jace had seen in the vision. The man smiled. "So you are the one," he said. "The last spark." Jace stepped forward. "Who are you?" "I am Coroel," the man said, "firstborn of the bloodline, the one who was promised the throne." "Until the bond was broken," Valmyra gasped. "You're supposed to be dead." "I was," Coroel said. "But names do not die. They only wait." He looked at Jace, tilting his head. "You carry her blood. I can feel it. But you are not ready." "Ready for what?" Jace asked. Coroel raised a hand. A storm of memory exploded through the room. Visions of war, betrayal, and Thalani screaming in fear as their temples burned. "You think your bond is a gift?" he asked. "No. It is a curse." He pointed at Lura. She should have stayed silent, but she laughed, and that laugh broke time. Lura stepped forward, unafraid. "You speak of curses, but you only want the crown." "Because the crown is mine," he roared, "and he pointed at Jace, "is nothing but a shadow." Jace raised his voice. "Maybe I am, but sometimes a shadow falls where light can't reach." Corohel's eyes narrowed. "Clever," he said, "but words won't save you." He turned to leave. "You have 7 cycles, then I return. And when I do, I will reclaim my name and bury yours." As he vanished in a flash of red light, silence filled the vault. Jace turned to Valmyra and Lura. "What now?" Valmyra looked shaken. "Now we prepare for war." Lura stepped close. "No. Now we teach you who you really are." And far, above Thalara, ancient ships moved into formation, drawn not by power but by a name they had waited centuries to hear again. The false groom rises, the twin moons of Thalara turned red. It was a sign from the old times, a warning written in the sky. Red moons meant blood was coming, and somewhere far from the palace, the ancient forges began to burn again. In the great city of Jareth, a challenge had been declared. The name of the challenger echoed through the royal court like a curse. Vorak. His voice shook the hall as he stood before the council, tall, armored, and crowned in shadowed steel. "I invoke the right of conquest," Vorak shouted. "The blood-marked human has no right to her. I am the one chosen by tradition." Jace and Lura stood before the council. Behind them, Valmyra watched carefully, her hands glowing faintly. "There is no conquest," Lura said, stepping forward. "I made no vow to you." Vorak's eyes narrowed. "You made no vow, but you laughed. And by the law of the old Thalani code, your laugh is a call, a royal signal. That law is dead," Lura replied coldly. "Then let it rise again," Vorak said, drawing his blade. Gasps filled the court. "He's invoking blood trial," Valmyra whispered. "In public. That hasn't happened in centuries." Jace looked at the blade, then at the warrior. "What does that mean?" "It means," Valmyra said, "you'll have to fight, and if you lose, he claims her." Jace blinked. "Claims her like property?" "In his eyes, yes," Valmyra said. "He believes the old ways still rule." Jace turned to Lura. "And what if I win?" Lura's voice was soft, but firm. "Then the name you carry becomes law." Vorak stepped forward. "But if you lose, human, your blood will water the roots of my crown." The council fell silent. Lura looked at Jace. "You don't have to do this." But Jace was already walking toward the circle. "Yes, I do," he said. The blood trial was to be held at dawn. The arena was carved from star rock and surrounded by the statues of forgotten kings. Thousands gathered to watch. Nobles, generals, even the old empress watched from behind a veil. Jace stood in the center wearing light armor woven from crystal threads. It wasn't meant for war, but it was all he had. Across from him stood Vorak. He wore iron forged in deep space. His blade was as tall as Jace himself, humming with dark energy. "Say your last words, human." Vorak growled. Jace didn't answer. Instead, he remembered. He remembered the vision in the maze. The woman who had called him Legacy. The child in the fire. The name on the stone. He wasn't here for pride. He wasn't here for power. He was here to protect a promise. The gong rang. Vorak charged. His blade came down like a comet. Jace barely dodged, rolling to the side. The ground cracked where the sword struck. Jace wasn't stronger, but he was faster and smarter. He used the arena's walls, climbed the broken statues, ducked behind pillars. Each time Vorak swung, he missed, but only just. The crowd roared. With each close call, "You run like a worm," Vorak shouted. "I fight to win," Jace replied, but even his speed had limits. After 15 minutes, he was breathing hard. Sweat poured from his face. Then Vorak caught him. A hard kick to the side sent Jace flying into the stone wall. His shoulder cracked. Pain shot down his arm. The crowd gasped. Lura stood up from her seat, her lips parted, eyes wide with fear. Vorak raised his blade for the final strike, but Jace, bleeding, broken, smiled. "Thanks," he whispered. "For what?" Vorak sneered. "For getting close." Jace rolled under the blade, grabbed a shard of his own broken armor, and stabbed it into the weak joint beneath Vorak's arm. Vorak screamed. His sword fell. Jace grabbed it, and with all his strength, he drove the blade into the ground between them. "Yield," he said. Vorak looked at the blade, then at the watching crowd, and fell to his knees. "I yield." The arena fell silent. Then the crowd roared. Lura ran to Jace, her hands glowing with healing energy. "You idiot," she whispered. "You could have died." "But I didn't," he smiled. "And now, no one can claim you." Valmyra stepped into the arena. "By blood and blade," she shouted, "let it be written. Jace of Earth, bonded by name, has defeated the false groom." The old empress stood. For the first time in generations, she removed her veil. Her face was wrinkled, marked by time, but her eyes were sharp. "Bring him to me," she said. The crowd went quiet. In the highest tower, Jace stood before the empress. She looked at him long and hard. Then slowly, she smiled. "You look like your ancestor." "You knew them?" Jace asked. "Yes," she said. "I betrayed them." "Why?" "Because I was afraid," she said. "Afraid of what humans and Thelani could become together. Afraid of what we might lose." Jace nodded. "Then maybe it's time to stop being afraid." The empress looked out at the sky. The red moons were fading. "Perhaps," she whispered. But even as she spoke, far beyond Thalara, Koroel watched from his ship. He saw the fight, he saw the blood, and he saw the name rising again. "Soon," he said, eyes glowing with fury. "Very soon I will take back everything, and this time, he wouldn't come alone." The name that broke time. The sky cracked open above Thalara, not with lightning, but with time. Silver rifts appeared between the stars, silent, pulsing, and wrong. The Thelani called them veils of memory. They were not supposed to exist anymore. Only the old book spoke of them, doors to forgotten worlds, cracks in reality. And now, they were back. Jace stood at the highest point of the city, staring at one of the rifts. It hovered above the mountain peaks, warping the air around it. Sometimes, when he looked too long, he saw faces, moments, things that felt like dreams but tasted like truth. Lura stood beside him, her hands trembling. "It's happening," she said. "The name, it's tearing the past open." "Why?" Jace asked softly. Valmyra joined them. Her face was pale. "Because your blood and her name were never meant to meet again, not in this time." "But it already happened," Jace said. "I spoke it." Valmyra nodded. "Yes." And that single word reached back through centuries. She held up a glowing map. Tiny points of light marked time fractures spreading across the galaxy. Some blinked and vanished. Others grew larger, opening into full portals. What's on the other side of these? Jace asked. Valmyra's voice dropped. Everything we chose to forget. That night, the ancient council met again. This time, not in open court. They gathered in the star chamber, deep underground, where no light from the sky could reach. It was a place built by the first Thelani kings, where laws were written in crystal and sealed in thought. We have no choice, one of the elders said. The name must be removed. We tried that before, another whispered, and it only made it stronger. Then we end the boy, a third voice hissed. Lura's hand went to her blade. Say that again, she said coldly. The room fell silent. Valmyra stepped forward. He is not the danger. The danger is what follows him. They turned to the great mirror of stars, a living screen that showed visions of possible futures. At first, it was dark. Then, slowly, the mirror showed a war. Worlds burning, machines tearing cities apart, and a single throne floating in space, empty. This is what Kor-El wants, Valmyra said. He's using the name to break the walls between timelines. He's searching for a version of the future where he wins. Can that happen? Jace asked. Yes, Valmyra said. If he finds the true time lock, the first bond, he can rewrite everything. Jace looked at Lura. What if we find it first? You'd have to survive the memory sea, Valmyra said. You'd have to go into the rift. The room gasped. No one has ever returned from the memory sea, an elder warned. Then maybe it's time someone did, Jace said. The rift was alive. It shimmered like liquid glass, floating above the highest peak of Thelara. Energy crackled around its edge. Voices whispered from inside it, some familiar, some not. Lura stood in armor laced with memory steel. Jace wore the same, his crystal blade strapped to his back. Valmyra gave them each a final device, a time thread. It links your mind to now, she explained, but only for a while. Stay too long in the sea, and you become part of it. Jace nodded. What exactly are we looking for? Valmyra hesitated. A moment. The moment the first bond was made. If you can touch it, anchor it. You'll stop Kor-El from rewriting it. And if he touches it first? Lura asked. Valmyra looked away. Then you will never have existed. The wind howled across the peak. The rift opened wide. Jace and Lura stepped through. The memory sea wasn't water. It was light, sound, emotion. They fell through colors, through thoughts that weren't theirs, through feelings so old they hurt. Jace felt himself pulled into scenes, Earth cities from the past, Thelani temples rising, wars fought on glass moons. Lura screamed beside him, not from fear, but from remembering. Their minds began to fracture. They saw themselves, but not as they were. Jace saw a version of himself in a royal cloak, standing at a wedding altar beside a Thelani bride. Her name wasn't Lura, but her eyes were the same. He saw another version, alone, broken on a battlefield, whispering the name into a dying sky. They weren't memories, they were possibilities. Stay with me. Lura shouted, grabbing his hand. I don't know who I am anymore, Jace cried. You're the one who guessed, she said, and I'm the one who laughed. They held each other as the sea calmed. Before them, a light appeared, a cradle made of starlight. Inside it, two glowing threads wrapped together, one human, one Thelani. The first bond. Jace stepped forward, but so did someone else. Kor-El. He emerged from the sea like a god, wrapped in black flames, eyes burning with stolen time. You came all this way, he said, only to lose. He raised his blade, made of shattered memories. Jace stepped in front of Lura. You're not taking it, he said. Then die with her, Kor-El said. The blades met in silence. The fight wasn't like the arena. It wasn't about strength, it was about truth. Each strike showed a memory. Jace saw his ancestors, his childhood, his pain, his hope. Corohel saw only rage. They clashed again and again until Jace fell. Corohel stood over him. It ends here, but before he could strike, Lura spoke her name. Ilari. The sea exploded with light. The bond awakened. The threads in the cradle rose into the air, wrapped around Corohel, and pulled him into the past he tried to steal. His scream echoed across all time. When the sea faded, only Jace and Lura remained. They held the first bond in their hands. The rift began to close, and the stars sang. Back on Thalara, time healed. The cracks vanished. The sky turned blue again, and in the great hall of the stars the old Empress stepped down. She looked at Jace and Lura. "You carry the name that broke time," she said, "but you also carry the one that rebuilt it," and she knelt before them. For the first time in Thalani history, the bond was no longer a secret. It was law. The marriage that changed the stars. The throne room of Thalara had never been so silent. Not when wars were declared, not when kings fell, not even when the sky turned red. Now, across the galaxy, every screen, every star relay, every diplomatic node broadcast one thing: a human had survived the memory sea. And he returned with the first bond. Jace and Lura stood at the center of the shining floor, their hands still glowing from the threads of light they had brought back. Around them, leaders from 100 worlds watched with breathless eyes. But not everyone was ready to kneel. "This is madness," one Thalani general growled. "A human, standing in the royal circle?" "He carries the name," Valmyra said, calmly. "And he brought it back. Not through war, but truth. That name should have stayed forgotten," another snapped. "It tore our world once. Now it will tear the galaxy." The old Empress stood slowly from her throne, her long, silver robes dragging across the crystal floor. Her voice was low, but it carried across the galaxy. "Our world was torn because we buried love beneath fear." She turned to Jace and Lura. "And now love returns, not as weakness, but as power." The words silenced the room. But deep in, the outer sectors, in the shadows of dead moons, remnants of Corohel's followers gathered. They whispered of timelines still broken, of memories that had not faded. One of them, a figure in bone armor, opened a vault hidden in a collapsing station. Inside it was a recording. An old one, distorted. But one line remained clear: "If I cannot hold the throne, then no one shall." Countdown began. Meanwhile on Thalara, the final rites were prepared. The marriage ceremony between Jace and Lura was not just tradition, it was history reborn. The Temple of Threads, an ancient hall that had not been opened for 9,000 years, was unsealed. It floated above the sky, held in place by light and song. Only those marked by destiny were allowed to enter. Jace stood before a mirror of stars. He wore robes woven from memory silk, cloth that shimmered with every step, reflecting his journey. Not just his blood, not just his past, but his choice. Valmyra stood beside him. "Are you ready?" Jace took a slow breath. "No, but that never stopped me before." She smiled faintly. "It's strange. When I first saw you, I thought you were a mistake. Now, you're the reason we still have a future." On the other side of the temple, Lura stood beneath the twin heartlights. Her hair was braided in silver rings, each one representing a moment she had fought for Jace. Her gown was simple but glowing, woven from the first bond itself, flowing like starlight across her body. As the music began, an old Thalani song only sung when history changed, Jace walked forward. So did she. When their hands touched, the entire temple lit up. The first bond rose above them like a flame. A voice, not spoken but felt, echoed through the stars. "This is not the end. This is the anchor." The galaxy paused. 1,000,000 species, 1,000,000,000 voices, all watching. Then, in perfect unison, the stars bent, just slightly, as if bowing. But far away. The countdown ended. A forgotten machine on the edge of the galaxy woke. It was Kor-El's last plan, a final curse buried in the very bones of time. A timeline virus, designed to infect the memory sea and erase the bond from every version of reality. And now, it was active. A dark wave spread from the machine. Systems blinked. Timelines bent. Shadows rippled. On Thalara, the temple lights flickered. Lura staggered. Something's wrong. Jace gripped her hand. What is it? Valmyra rushed into the hall, eyes wide with terror. Kor-El built a failsafe, she said. It's rewriting time. It's trying to erase the moment you met. Jace's heart pounded. Can we stop it? Valmyra shook her head. Not unless someone anchors the bond. In every version. How do we do that? Lura asked. Valmyra looked at Jace. You don't. He does. Jace stood again at the edge of the memory sea. This time he was alone. You must go deeper, Valmyra had told him. Not to observe, but to embed. The sea opened, roaring with unfinished time. Jace dived in. He saw himself in 1,000 places, running, laughing, dying, forgotten. He saw Lura again and again, sometimes as a stranger, sometimes as a ghost. The virus chased him. Memories crumbled behind him, timelines collapsed like paper. But Jace held one thing, her name. He whispered it, again and again. Ilari, Ilari, in every time, in every world. The virus screamed, and then, light, a calm. The bond, now complete, rose from the sea and sealed, itself in the root of all time. Kor-El's curse shattered. Back in the temple, Lura fell to her knees. He's gone, she whispered. Valmyra closed her eyes. No, he's not gone. He's part of us now. The stars above flickered. And then, he returned, falling from the rift, wrapped in glowing threads. Jace, alive, whole but different. His eyes held a quiet power now, like someone who had seen too much and still chose to hope. He walked to Lura. She didn't speak. She just threw her arms around him, and the stars rejoiced. Months later, peace spread across the galaxy. New laws were written, new alliances formed, and in the highest halls of Thalara, a statue was raised, not of warriors, not of rulers, but of two souls, one human, one Thalani, standing hand in hand, looking at the stars together beneath it. A single line, he guessed her name, but she had chosen him long before he spoke it.